Okay, I want to welcome everybody to today's NASCA webinar, exploring how state conservation agencies can use personality assessments to build stronger teams, enhance leadership development, and improve workplace communication. This webinar is being recorded, and this will be available on NASCA's YouTube page. We have two individuals presenting on this topic today, but we encourage anybody from today's attendees to share examples if these are exercises you've done in your state, if you've used different methods, programs. We're definitely interested in hearing from you and those exercises in your state. This webinar will last up to 60 minutes, but we'll have plenty of time for questions. Save your questions to the end. We'll have both presenters go, but if you'd like, you can also drop those in the chat. I'll track those and we can come back to those later. And then I want to remind everybody to stay on mute for this call, and we'll get things kicked off. I'm going to introduce our two presenters for today. Christy Roman is a Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development Regional Coordinator in the Conservation Programs Unit of the Bureau of Environment and Sustainability. She assists local conservation districts in Northeast Michigan and has worked with districts in several capacities for more than 20 years. Christy has a master's degree in adult learning from Michigan State and became a certified DISC facilitator, and in 2022 joined the MDARD facilitation team. Tyler Brown is the Conservation District's program manager with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. He is the past president for NASCA and the current chair of NASCA's Policy Committee. Tyler interacts with 230 soil and water conservation district commissioners, more than 50 soil and water conservation district employees, 185 watershed district directors, and his team at South Carolina DNR, all of which he says have their own unique personality. So we've got two experts with us. I'm going to turn this over to Christy. She'll start, and look forward to it. Christy.
All right. Thank you, Mike, and welcome everyone. I'm excited to be with you today. So I just am going to share my screen here. Did it screen share?
Looks good.
All right. Good deal. All right. I am going to there. Dragging this over. Sorry, I just have to arrange things slightly on my screen. So, welcome, and I just want to start out by asking if you would raise your hands if you have participated in a DISC facilitation or are somewhat familiar with the DISC. All right. Looks like quite a few of you are. And for some reason, my presentation doesn't want to move forward, so that's helpful. There we go. All right. So even though you all are probably, or most of you have some familiarity with DISC, I'm going to quickly go over just some of the little tenets of DISC. On the screen is the definition of DISC that Wiley & Sons has on their website. Wiley & Sons own the DISC assessment in the United States. And my definition is a little bit different. I define it as a series of assessments designed for developing employees, but I also like to remind people what it is and isn't. It's not a pass or fail test. It is not a hiring or screening tool. There's no wrong style, and it really is just a tool to help create a common language. And as I go through this, you'll hear how in the state of Michigan, we have used this in a way that I think we're creating that across departments even. The basic tenets are based on a 4-quadrant circle. And as you see, these are the words associated with the acronym DISC, and there are colors associated with that. In a few minutes, you'll see the circular model, but I would ask you now if you would raise your hands if you're familiar with the Myers-Briggs Myers-Briggs indicator. Yeah, everyone is. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Myers-Briggs is compared to DISC. Myers-Briggs is rooted in psychology. It is a personality test. And how that differs from DISC is if I were to take the Myers-Briggs today and then again in 10 years, most likely I am going to have the exact same result. The only reason that we see variation in Myers-Briggs is usually like if some kind of trauma happened in your life, you may see a shift. But for the most part, Myers-Briggs is who you are at your core. DISC is focused on behavior, and it kind of sits in between that personality and environment. So that is why when you take a DISC assessment, it will say, please focus on the workplace, because Christy at home will test differently, most likely, than Christy in the workplace. And Christy on vacation might look different than any of those things. So the environment we're in can influence how we respond to things. So in the state of Michigan, we retest for anyone that has a new position, usually within 6 months to a year of a new position, because your environment changes. Let's say you are now a supervisor and you weren't before. Obviously, that behavior might change, and we want to have you acting in the best way that possible for your team. We also re-trigger assessment at 5-year marker. A lot can happen in 5 years. A lot in your life can change. Leadership can change. And so we will retest upon request at the 5-year marker. So everything DISC in workplace is the primary product that you are most likely familiar with and have done. But I like to bring up that there are other products, and when you're certified in all of these different assessments. And I'm going to talk about each of them, except the 5 cohesive behaviors of a cohesive team. That assessment is based on Stephen Covey's work, where the other assessments are all around building off that DISC model. It is a good assessment, and I know through our facilitation tools, it is available to us, but I won't go into detail on that. So as I mentioned, the workplace is the most common. You guys probably have seen this circle many of times. And if you notice the things that I would like you to think about is that now in the new assessment, depending on when you took it, there are 12 quadrants or 12 styles, specific styles within those 4 quadrants. And in addition to that report that you get after you take the assessment, there's other products that sometimes facilitators will use, but they might not necessarily all the time. And it's good to know that they're available. So if you're working with a facilitator, you know what to ask for. You can ask for group culture reports, which in that, if you have a team of people, you would click in the system. As a facilitator, I'd click in the system and I would say, I want a report that kind of generates how this team could operate better as a team. You can create posters that have the dots where all your staff land on the map. You can also do things called a comparison report, and that is where 2 individuals who consent and have taken DISC, I can hit a button and create reports for each person that tells them how to operate better with the person requested to have that report, and they're all really valuable tools to have. Agile EQ is kind of sits in between the DISC model, and then it gives you personalized insights related to emotional intelligence development. And it's a really cool report, but I will remind you that the interesting thing, or where DISC gets you, is that every time you take one of these assessments, you're going to pay for a new assessment. So this is totally different, I mean, not totally. I mean, there are some similarities, but it is a different report. And you can see, just I like to throw in a few of the different things that look different than the traditional disc. But every time you're looking at probably about $90 right now, depending on your contract or your facilitator's contract. I think we're running 80. I have a personal disc account too, and that is 90 right now. So that's important to keep in mind as the cost. Because on top of that, and then I will say, since I'm talking about the cost, the other thing you have to think about with DISC is, on top of that, if you're going to do facilitation, there is, of course, the facilitator is going to charge you a fee for that too. Unless you're like us in Michigan, where you have certified facilitators on staff. The next test I want to talk about is work of leaders. And this one's kind of an interesting assessment. It is to help you create actionable paths towards effective leadership. And it is very well researched. It took 4 years to develop this product, and they consulted with 300 different individuals and corporations to develop this tool. But again, this one is all about developing leaders, and so you would want to focus this in on like supervisors, most likely, or a team that's working with across different divisions. There is productive conflict is another piece. This one's a really nice one for your teams that maybe are having some issues, or just like any group or unit that wants to have a better relationship within their unit. It is about developing self-awareness about your behaviors in conflict, and it helps you identify very specific steps to address those issues. It is a nice tool. Again, like, we are only using this in small groups of people right now. So how we operate as a team, I'm going to just talk about our facilitation team right now. In Michigan, we have an organization overhead that is called the Michigan Quality of Life. It includes all of these departments and the overarching human resource department for these entities. We have what we call the Quality of Life DISC team. And this team includes 2 to 3 facilitators who are certified in each department. It varies on whether or not those facilitators are full-time facilitators, or they're doing it in addition to their regular work like I do. Facilitators meet monthly for consistency training, and we have a team in Microsoft Teams to collaborate on our presentations and other tools. And each department uses the product slightly different, but we try to have consistent facilitation methods throughout the departments. Oh, now I'm going to talk a little bit about how each of those departments use the tools, but mostly I'm going to stay on the Michigan Department of Ag and Rural Development because obviously I work for them and I'm most familiar with our methods. We do use DISC as an onboarding tool, and it is required as part of your probationary period. Within 1 year, every individual has to take DISC. We work really hard to use DISC, a DISC or DISC culture in MDARD. We are trying to create a DISC culture, so that onboarding piece is really important. To build that, during each of our quarterly onboarding sessions that we hold, we have the supervisors from MDARD come and join us for a panel discussion on how they use it in their work life. And that seems to be a really effective tool too. In addition, we do specialized training for supervisors. We have both a virtual like module that you would go through that talks about how to integrate DISC into your supervisor role. And then we also do in-person training that we have like a component during a mandatory supervisor training that all new supervisors have to take. We also promote very heavily comparison reports, and then using another report that we use often, I talked about a few of them earlier, is a team view, which is kind of the summary of where people's dots lie also. It's just a free one. The one I mentioned earlier actually has a cost to it. So we try to promote the free tools within the facilitation website because it is quite expensive. The other thing, I do not do my bullets in order, but I will say we also do specialized trainings for teams that are looking to build out their staff or address current issues. A lot of times it looks like a hybrid training. I especially have some training in other types of facilitation. So I like to interview my supervisors and find out what they're looking to get. And then I create specialized trainings for them based on that. Eagle, which is our Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, they use the tool a little bit differently, but they are doing the onboarding and specialized training. The one difference between us and Eagle is we have 400 to 500 staff and they have 2,500 staff. So it is a little bit different in their facilitation methods. Also, where the three of us that work for the Department of Agriculture that implement DISC, we're doing it as our side jobs. They actually have 3 full-time trainers on their training staff that are DISC certified. Department of Natural Resources is in transition. Their primary facilitator took another position. They still have 3 people certified and available to use, but they're kind of reassessing how they're going to use it in the future. But in the past, they looked a lot like what MDARD did. So then we have one other way that we're integrating it into the quality of life, and that's through our Leadership Academy. We have a Leadership Academy just for our 4 entities, and it's about a year-long program. And in this program, we specifically target using the Work of Leaders tool. And we do that primarily because every single person in our 3 or 4 departments are supposed to have went through DISC at some time. So we use that one. as our specific tool. So how do I use it daily? I use it with my managers and directors and coworkers on a regular basis. And how I use it is people reading. I am not talking about pigeonholing people into styles. I am aware that at times once you have taken DISC, it's easy to joke about people's styles, and sometimes it's funny and sometimes it's hurtful. So I try to add like use it with caution. And but the idea is that we're kind of paying attention to how people operate. And I try to say, think about how they're operating in this moment. And then think about how we could adjust to have a better outcome from the situation that we're in. And how we do that is using a tool called style flexing. And that's where we're adapting our behavior to have that better outcome. Sometimes we can do that ahead. Sometimes we can kind of think through things, and sometimes we're doing it in the moment. This is also the place that I would mention that your ability to style flex could be impacted by where that dot is on the map. So for me, my dot is almost always on either on the outside of the circle or right on the line. And what that means is that I'm very strongly inclined to that style. I am typically an S or an SI and way out. Now, if my dot is closer to the circle, and to be honest, that is like my dream superpower to move towards, but it doesn't seem to happen when I test. It means that I can quickly adjust to any style because I am not as inclined to my primary style. So it is kind of a fun super skill to build, and it is one of those things that I think with time and emotional resilience, you can build that skill out. And then the last thing I will mention, if my slide will go forward, sorry about that, is intentionally building teams. I think if you are doing DISC or any other kind of assessment, there's a lot of assessments available. You can be thoughtful about how you build your teams. And I'll give you an example using the DISC as that tool. So if I were building a team, and I would probably start with the I, and the I is likely to be your innovator. They're usually good with ideas, and they'll get you started. They'll give you that unique thing, and then they'll be off to the next thing because they typically are not the people that are going to carry forward that idea. They're going to give you the great idea. The S's will take that idea and they will go around to everyone in the circle and they'll say, what do you think? Is this the right thing? How can we do this? And be very inclusive of everyone in the that needs to be involved. And then they're going to shift it off to the C's, and the C's are going to take care of all the details. And you have to kind of watch them, and that's why you need the D's, because they will get so focused on the details that they don't necessarily catch, or they don't always stop when they need to stop. And so the D's will come in and say, perfect is the enemy of good enough. And they'll say, this is where we can end it. And they will pass it off. So it is nice to have a little bit of everything on your team. So, I am over time, I think, so I will pass it off to Tyler, and you guys are welcome to ask questions. My contact information is here if you need to ask any questions, or, if you want to email or contact me.
Fantastic. Thanks, Christy. Appreciate that. Great job. We are going to hand it off to Tyler Brown, who's going to give us insight from the work he's done.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you, Mike. And to tell you all, when it comes to personality assessments, I'm a huge fan of the DISC profile assessment. And Chris, you did a fantastic job at explaining DISC and how to work within there. And I will tell y'all, I am a very high I, and that will surprise a lot of you. And if I have the chance, I'm here in a bit, I'm going to share my screen, share my personality report from DISC so you can kind of see firsthand what it looks like. But I want to go into why personality assessments are important. And you heard Mike talk about all the different commissioners, watershed directors, employees, and even my own team here at DNR. We all carry different personalities. And the reality of it is, not only taking DISC as a team to understand your team dynamics and what is going on, but also as well for you to be self-aware as to how you operate and how you can also as well portray yourself better as you aim to, and I'm just going to say it, Christine, I'm okay with it. I do try to identify and target what is somebody and what is their style, not to call them out on that style, but how do I adapt my high I to be with someone who's CS or someone who's in the D category or in the S category that may have a hard time understanding my high enthusiasm, and for lack of better words, just being very eclectic in the projects that I'm willing to take on, and how do we fit in with that? I was first exposed to DISC when I came into the agency, very similar to Christy. We went through this with all of our senior program managers. And when I took my first assessment, it was great. But then whenever we did our group chats together about our DISC assessments, it was during COVID. And what we quickly realized was we just talked about it. There was no one there to help walk us through and facilitate. How do you work with someone that's a different personality type? How do you quickly identify the way someone ticks and operates so that you can be most effective? So while it was good to know, well, yes, I'm a high I, Brooke, who works down the hall from me, is a CS, but what does that say for how we interact and how we engage and how we can get the most out of each other to move on the same path forward? So was good from a self-awareness, but was a huge failure in terms of implementation and trying to figure out how we work as a team dynamic. When I went through DISC for the second time through a leadership institute that I'm a part of, we actually did the interactiveness of going through each of the personality types. How do they work? How do they function? Help me to understand myself and help me to understand how others operate. But more importantly, how do we engage with each other and how do we best adapt and also communicate how I operate, how I'm effective, and pull that out of others as well. And lastly, something that I was very excited to do last year as a NASCA board, we went through our DISC assessments as a board and learned a lot about each other, that we had a lot of aha moments about different ways we've interacted, engaged, or work on projects. But most importantly, at the end, we did a little team building activity and we had to put together a puzzle. And there was different ones of us from different scales of the DISC wheel there that had to work together to figure out this complicated puzzle. And it was a race against 3 or 4 other teams. And you quickly realize how to pull in someone's strengths and where maybe my weaknesses kick in to pull those into offset, but then vice versa, to offer my strengths and my personality to help pull us together in a common direction. So I highly recommend doing DISC but to Christy's point, I think to anybody that has the opportunity, utilize a facilitator to walk you through those different personalities. How do you work and engage with them? And maybe tie in a little fun activity along with it, because that will stick and resonate. I know for those of us that were on the board retreat last year, we definitely got that out of our DISC surveys as well, was that activity that we did in putting the puzzles together. And lo and behold, we're putting the puzzle together for our own board, our culture, and how we operate, which gave us a better understanding of each other that better serves our members as well. So to give you all just a little feel of a DISC survey, I'm just going to share my screen so you can see what mine looks like. And I'm not going to go through this in detail. Can everybody see my workplace profile? Everybody sees that? Good deal.
Yes.
Thank you. So when you get your DISC and you complete one, it's a big questionnaire. And I sincerely tell everybody, take this to heart. Be vulnerable is the best thing I can tell you. Even as a director, no matter what scale you're on, be honest with yourself as you answer these, because you're going to get an honest output at the end. So after you go through your series of questions, a report is generated. It goes through what is DISC, and you can read this on your own as you get your own personality profile. But more importantly, it talks about yourself and your dot. And you can see here with DISC where I said I'm a high I, and you heard Christy talk about going to the outer edges. I am truly smack dab enthusiasm as far out as you can go. Which is great because I'm self-aware of that about myself, so I know how I operate. But also too, as I look at the C's who may be on the opposite end of me, might need to tone that down sometimes in our collaboration there. So again, just bringing about the self-awareness of myself to be more effective for others too. Now, what I love about DISC, it goes through your style. What does your dot say about you? What is your personality? Now, do all of those fit you? Probably not, but you'd be surprised at how the majority does. And here with the shading here and how this expands out into other categories as you take your survey, this will tell you a little bit as to how you do blend over into all those categories. And that's the one thing I want to stress. Just because I'm a high I does not mean I don't carry tendencies from the S, the C, or the D. As you can tell here, I can pull those in together, just may not be as strong in those different categories there. I'm not going to go through motivators. But what I really love about the DISC assessment is it goes through how to work with the D style and how may they react to me, and the same for each of the categories here. And God bless you if you have to deal with a bunch of I's in the same category, as all I can say. And it's good to surround yourself, as Christy said, with folks at different parts of the wheel, especially as you look at your group projects and continuity, because everybody brings a different strength and a different uh asset to the game as you work forward as a team there. So those are the different styles and the wheels, but then it also goes through how you connect best with each of these pieces. This is the part I found most valuable, is how do I connect with those that are opposite from me, more especially because I can connect with folks who are within eyes, but I need to make sure I'm also connecting with those outside of my wheel forecast here, and also how to take action. And this is where the self-reflection for me is kicked in. So, you know, like the one thing is take care to get things right the first time. Eyes like me were very quick to get things done and move on, but not look at the details of accuracy, which is why we're opposite from each other on these wheels. But also as well, sometimes I may feel like I'm on an island, no one's understanding my message, but I'm not giving them time to understand my message either. And acknowledging problems versus glossing them over and addressing those head on. When I read this for the first time, I said, my gosh, this is actually calling to the table what I'm struggling with here. And the way it was put to me was very refreshing, so to say, with this. So I'm not going to go through the rest of this, but just wanted to give y'all a high level behind how we look onto this as individuals. And if you were to run an individual report, what can you expect? Lastly, and we don't have names here, but this is last year's board group culture with NASCA. And you can see all the different dots on the wheels here that are going around. And it's just incredible as we see the diversity of our NASCA board. And I'm willing to bet you, if you were to poll your team, whether it's in your agency, your state association, or another nonprofit or group, you would see something very similar to this, as sort of a shotgun pattern result here with the diversity of where individuals work off of. Um, and one of the things I'll say is it's true when they say opposites attract, and my significant other and I'm a high I, she's a high C. And so that's how we complement, and truly opposites do draw each other together. So it can work and it can function. And I can say firsthand, for me, it's been hugely beneficial, even though we haven't done this formally on our team because we're still filling our team out. But as soon as we get that done, we intend on doing a retreat where we run this DISC assessment, but we go through activities to understand how do we work with each other on a facilitation side of it too as well. So we're excited for that. I want to close out by saying a lot of us aren't able to have in-house DISC facilitators. And you heard me talk about getting a facilitator to come and do activities to run this exercise and to go through different scenarios with you and with your team. One of the things I would recommend is look at some folks in state and maybe that are in the ag or conservation space, because they can relate and give those best examples for you all within your states as well. I have folks that we use here in South Carolina. I'm not going to disclose who they are or who we contract with just because of conflict of interest. But if anybody's curious to know how can I get started, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help connect you with a group of different DISC facilitators within the Southeast, which is where my greatest knowledge is on the facilitators, to help connect you there and get them on contract. I will say most folks are pretty reasonable if you don't have them in-house. Most of your DISC folks are moderately reasonable, and also too they can cater your training based on what your needs are. So as you fill out that RFP, think about what you want your end results to be. But heavily encourage, if you're going to go through the DISC process, invest in the facilitation of it, because that's where you're going to get the best bang as to what you've learned about yourself, but more importantly about the colleagues that you did the DISC assessment with as well. And for that, that's my portion of this. I'll turn it over to Mike now and answer any questions, or let Christy answer questions. She did such a good job explaining DISC.
Well, you both did a great job and appreciate that. And for the record, related to opposites attract, on that map Tyler showed, I'm on the far end of the CD spectrum, and Tyler and I get along just fine. So a couple questions here. I'll start off with one that's for both of our presenters. Do you have tips to get staff buy-in? This person says, I get a lot of eye rolls when I suggest an activity like this. What suggestions do you have there?
So being one of enthusiasm, I think you have to make it positive too, as well. No matter what you're looking at within the culture, you also too need to be cognizant, to Christy's point, to make it not seem like you are brainwashing in terms of a sense and profiling people too. But I think talking about it openly, especially as directors or as managers, as to how it made us more self-aware of ourselves and how we interact with others on our teams. Christy, what would you like to add?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's to be expected. Like I know there are people that are not excited about that. I think it's really important, if you are going to have a facilitator, that you're letting the facilitator know ahead of time that you have people that are resistant to the process, and they can help in that. I have been in, it's funny, I recently was in one where I had a staff member in the onboarding one, and you could just tell like they were just like really upset they had to do it. But then that when we did a similar for the unit, she was like all happy. And I don't know if it's just like if the facilitator sticks to that traditional disc facilitation, watching the videos and all the things, that can really turn people off. If they're willing to like create their own thing, then I've seen some really good activities and good responses. So
This one is for Christy. Person asked, what are the common misinterpretations of DISC styles?
oh, that's a good question. The common misinterpretations are, well, I mean, I know I'm gonna build off Tyler was saying a little bit about like identifying someone's style, and we're adjusting our behavior for that primary style, which is fantastic. And the misinterpretation is that, I think Tyler also brought this up, we operate in all four styles all the time. And so it's really important to understand that when we're hungry, tired, angry, whatever is going on, that we may flex into a different style. They may flex into a different style. So like that's the piece. It's not we can say, oh, that's their primary style, and that's why it's great to do it as a team. Then you know it, and you can start there, but don't stop there. Really think about what's going on, and think about what's going on in you too, because sometimes you don't realize you're going along and you're not, you're trying to adjust, but maybe you're emotionally responding to things.
This one was directed at Tyler. How do you make sure everyone's voice is heard regardless of their DISC style? So for your team.
So I think what's important is that patience, and also understanding where folks thrive, and that's where DISC has helped me. And I will tell you, when someone that I don't know their disc style, that's why I go back and I refer to my own personality, because I can go in there and read and kind of take a guess. Maybe they're around here. And so I'll read where they're at and say, okay, how do I pull them along? But also that pulls them along to our shotgun pattern too. Because again, we all fit into every piece of this pie. So find that one piece that everybody blends in with, and that you have that buy-in with the culture of the group too. And I think that drives the team atmosphere of what you do have, is when you can pull that out of somebody and you see that similarity across all four sections of the pie. So you have to keep in mind what is going on in that person individually, but also too for your other members of your team, and find where that overlap is and pull them there in that center.
Sounds good. I'm gonna also call on Raquel from Colorado. I know in their state they've used something similar. Are you able to comment on that a little bit for Colorado?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I'm a huge fan of the DISC assessment, so I totally geek out over it. But we actually did these at our partner association, the annual meeting, and so it was part of like the registration to go to the annual meeting, and it was really like helpful to see not only our teams and the people that we serve, but also like our partners and where they are in the DISC profile. So we had people from NRCS at the annual meeting, we had the conservation districts, we had our association, us, and it was just amazing. And then afterwards, we came back and like made this amazing like a presentation that my colleague made, and just put all of us on the same, like our whole team on the same pie chart, and you could really see like the different strengths and that each team member brought. And so it was really helpful to see it like that. Like one of the comments on here, it said, you know, DC, like Nikki, who on our team, we rely on their decisiveness and goal setting for driving processes and progress and problem solving. And so it was really nice to see like who on our team was what, and just so we can like leverage those strengths together. So I'm just like a big fan. I highly recommend it. I love the disc, and so this is fun.
Fantastic. For Tyler, do you intentionally work to stretch your style, or how do you challenge your team to stretch?
So I do stretch my style, but also too as well, what I challenge with any team I'm on, whether it's a board or others, is to also, and this is something I have to remind myself is that as important as it is for me to stretch, it's important for them to stretch as well. So look at the forest through the trees at the end of the day. And sometimes it's us communicating how we operate as well and what's effective. So showcasing this is where I'm adapting to help, but this is where I need you to come and meet me in the middle for your stretch as well. So communicating where that gap is absolutely huge. But also as well, if you see gaps on your team where folks aren't pulling together to that center to stretch, doing it organically and trying to figure out how they stretch to meet there in the middle if they're working on a project together can be hugely beneficial. So don't even look at it as yourself. It could be two team members working on a special task or a project, and you see where those gaps are and helping to how they can stretch and fill those two and coach them through it as to their personalities there.
This one's for Christy. You know, as you're teaching this, once the group has their disc style down and they understand their coworkers or the rest of the team what their style is, and you understand kind of what that means, what's the next thing you're going to train or teach? What is the next step logically in that process?
I think the next step is learning how other people are operating in their style. So like if I know that someone on my team is a D and I'm an S, and we were talking about that being across the spectrum, that's where we can see some conflict sometimes. So like an S is very interested in telling the whole story a lot of times and making sure that everyone's included, and a D's like, just come to me with the exact question you need answered in the shortest, most succinct way. And so like I think learning that piece, like how each one prefers to be approached, can make a big difference for those interactions that are more planned. Like sometimes things happen in the moment and then we're, dealing with conflict in the moment. But a lot of times we know ahead of time when we're going to approach or meet with someone. So being thoughtful about what that looks like.
And to add to that, baby steps are okay. And
Yeah.
go at it incrementally. Don't go at it head into the water. Maybe just dip your toes in and just slowly try some new things. It's okay to not get it all squared away in your first try. And to continue to adapt as well.
Hey, well, it looks like we are out of questions, but we had some good ones. I want to thank both of our speakers, Tyler and Christy. This was an excellent presentation. You can follow up with either of them if you need to. You can reach through NASCA. This webinar will be posted on the NASCA YouTube page, and our next webinar is scheduled for July 23rd. Look for announcements in NASCA's newsletter or on the website. Thanks for everybody for attending this session.